For this part of the project, we are now going to create our enemy. So the idea with this is that we're going to have an enemy which is going to bounce back and forth, and we might make one then which goes up and down as well. So to do this, we're going to create a new object. So right click, create object, and I'm going to call this OEnemy, and I'm going to put V. V is for vertical. And then what we're going to do with this is bind the enemy to the sprite. Sorry, bind the enemy to the object. Now the first thing we're going to do is you're going to create a set of variables. So what we're going to do is you're going to click on create, and we're going to make a new variable here called enemy speed, and we're going to set it to say 3. Now it's important we don't set it too fast. Our player is set to a value of 4, so we want the enemy to be a little bit slower than that. We're then going to add in a series of different events in now. So we're going to add in a step event, and we're going to call it a step. And what we're going to do for this part, because this is our vertical, we're going to say X, and then we're going to give this, instead of giving it a value, we're going to say enemy speed. So we're going to type the word enemy speed in and make it relative. Now what that does is it basically means that the X value is going to be given the value of enemy speed. Now what we need to do is, if we just imagine this for a second, I've just added in my new instances layer and I've called it enemy, and I'd advise you to do the same. So click on the instances layer and click on the enemy, and if we just add this enemy in here just as an example and play the game, watch what happens to the enemy. The enemy is now moving on its own, but it's not interacting with the walls at all. So what happens is it eventually just goes out of the game and never to be seen again. So what we need to do is be able to stop the enemy and tell it to bounce the other way. Now to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to add a collision with the object or wall, and we are going to basically use a little bit of code here. So I'm going to use the variable enemy speed, and I'm going to say enemy speed multiplied by -1. So what that means is if we have the enemy speed which is set at 4, when we multiply it by -1, it's going to become -4. If we multiply -4 by -1, it's going to become 4 again. So it's a really quick bit of maths in order to get your player, so your enemy, to change directions very quickly. And as you can see, my enemy now is just bouncing back and forth between these 2 points. Now what we can do then is if we go back to our room, we can add then a few more enemies into various different parts of our game. Now bearing in mind, you have to be very careful where you add in your enemies. As an example, if I put the enemy here, then there's going to be no way for my player to make it down, around here and into this coin. Likewise, if I put it here, it might not be quick enough for my player to go up through, but then again testing will show that. If you put the enemy up here, then there will be no way to get around there. So you have to be very mindful of where you are placing your enemies. Now we need to make 1 or 2 horizontal enemies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this enemy V, and what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate it, and then I'm just going to change the name of it and just put H on the end of it. Now the reason why I'm going to do that is our enemy, the code in there is working beautifully for vertical, so it means that I only need to make 1 small change to do horizontal collisions. So if I double click on this and we go back to the step, what we're going to do now is change this X for Y, and everything else would be exactly the same. So let's go back to the room, and if I go onto the enemy here, let's add in this enemy H. So I'm going to put 1 here, and I'm going to put 1 here, and I'll put one more here. Now when we play this game now, what you'll see is all of the enemies now are moving, and the horizontal ones are going obviously up and down, and the vertical ones are going left and right. So what you're going to need to do now is add some of your enemies in and try to use a mixture of horizontal and vertical enemies as well.